most of us have forgotten this principle, that there is an internal teacher in us that is always guiding us, and we always have access to it, but we ignore it. And it comes, that teacher speaks to us primarily through dreams.
Hello, welcome back to Soul Sessions with Creative Mind. I'm Deborah Barrett Maldonado. I'm here with Dr. Rob Maldonado. How are you today, Rob?
Very well, thank you.
And we are continuing our series on dreams. Today we're talking about the shadow in dreams. But before we begin, I do want to remind you to click the button here in the corner if you're watching us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel so you can get the whole series. Make sure you don't miss a single episode. And we do have information in the show notes, so don't forget to check there as well. And we're excited for this series to continue.
Absolutely. So before we get going into the shadow, let's review. Last time we talked about the types of dreams, so that if you're playing along at home, you can kind of consider what kind of dreams.
So you can follow along.
Yeah, what kind of dream, because we're going to present a dream as well. So that will be interesting. So number one, there's prospective dreams, meaning, Jung describes it as a car with headlights. The headlights are illuminating the road up ahead. That's what dreams do with us, or prospective dreams do.
Tell us what's ahead. Right?
Tell us what's ahead, intuitively, emotionally, as far as our personal work, and also, as we'll see, in even more detailed work, they give us a heads up. The second one, compensatory dreams, or it's a compensatory function, I would say, right? That dreams are always trying to balance out an attitude that we have at the conscious waking life.
Wouldn't they fall more into shadow, kind of more shadow, or can they be?
Yeah. All of these can essentially be shadow dreams,
okay.
but they're particular aspects of shadow work. Integrative or integrative, as you might say. Either way, it's the idea that the dream is helping us integrate aspects of our personality that we've pushed away, which is shadow, right? So definitely.
So it's sort of doing the work for us while we're sleeping. Dream away your problem. So we want to look at the psyche in a very different way. Like Jung says, it's doing its work. It's an active function in our life.
Absolutely. But we also want to participate. I think that's the main difference between the ordinary person is simply going through their life without paying attention to that unconscious mind. Yeah. And what we want to do is we want to pay attention, and we want to say, how can I participate consciously in this process of growth?
Yes.
Reoccurring dreams, of course. We all had these dreams from childhood or adolescence, or even now. Some people say,
it's like kind of the same themes keep showing up. It doesn't have to be the same exact dream, but it's like I always have dreams of being lost. I have dreams of too many people and being overwhelmed. I have these dreams of being left behind. Those kind of like themes. So think about it that way as well.
And then this technical term, very neuroscientific, big dreams.
Yeah.
Big dreams simply means it's those dreams that, kind of wake you up and say, pay attention. You've been beeped, right? There's something that happened during the night, and you experience something very intense.
Yeah, it's either an intense, like, unpleasant feeling or an intense pleasant feeling, but there's a sense that it's something big, and it's something that you will remember usually without even writing it down. The big dreams are those, they just stick with you year after year after year. You're like, oh yeah, that dream I had, like it's still there. So that's what it's a big dream. It's like burned into your memory all the time. Yeah.
And finally, archetypal dreams, which are really unique in the sense that they're very mythological. They're not
about your personal life. There's like you're in another world, or almost like you're in a fantasy, right?
Very much so. Like you're in the Lord of the Rings or
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, yeah. And when these occur, again, they are big dreams, but they're also archetypal in the sense that the imagery points to this mythology that exists in the unconscious mind. Yeah. Anyway, this is not comprehensive. There's a myriad of other dream or types of dreams.
And the last episode, we go way into all the explanations. So we'll, if you want to go back and listen to it, that will be great. So we asked people to submit their dreams for possible interpretation. And so I have a dream here, Rob. And let's talk about what type of dream this is. So I'm going to read the dream first, and then we're going to look at it, what type of dream, and then also kind of understand it in a way. So I am in my therapist's office during a session when a group of children enter and interrupt us. The children leave, and then my friend Nancy, who is at the time pregnant with twins, walks in. She's coming to talk with my therapist, who I also shared with Nancy's husband in real life. She is calm and she's trying to smile, but her eyes are very sad. She has jaundice around the mouth, and she says some major shit is happening, excuse our French, and she really needs to talk to someone. I ask, are the babies okay? She says, yes, it is something else. So I hug her and leave her so she can talk with my therapist. And she said this is what she believed was a precognitive dream from 2013. So this is 10 years ago. This person remembers this dream. That could be a big dream as well. So she also noted that in real life, Nancy lost her twins 3 months after this dream suddenly. It was a great shock, and she was out of town when her husband called her to tell her the news. She was at a Frida Kahlo exhibit when he called. And after Nancy lost the twins, her husband discontinued the therapist so that Nancy could receive grief counseling from her. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so you missed a phrase there, which is part of the dream was that there was something about Frida Kahlo. Like there was something mentioned in the dream about Frida Kahlo.
Oh, it's not listed here, though. Yeah, that's her. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's important. It's an important piece because when she receives the call,
she's at a Frida Kahlo.
She's at a Frida Kahlo exhibition. And so this is a precognitive dream. It's a classic precognitive dream, meaning it's a dream that's going to tell us something that hasn't happened yet. This is months before this happens. So she has a dream about her friend, and she's worried about the babies, right? She asked in the dream about the babies, but in this case, the friend denies it and says, no, it's something else, something bigger in a sense. And then a few months later, right, she receives the call that
the babies have been lost.
The babies have been lost, yes. So it brings up a lot of questions. So yeah, we can say it's a precognitive dream. How is this related to shadow? The shadow often hides not only the negative, but a lot of us believe initially, right, that the shadow means something bad, and so it's some things that we pushed away. But it can also hide talents, skills, abilities. And so for our friend, I know her as a student, right? She trained with us. This was a dream that was showing her ability to connect to people at a much deeper level.
And is it that it's something else when the girl said it's not about the babies, it's something else? It kind of gives a clue. Like you're as part of this is precognitive, but there's something else.
Yeah, because all dreams invariably are talking about the dreamer. And so it's also a message for the dreamer. It disguised as a message about the friend's loss of the babies.
And so what would be the purpose of having a precognitive dream? Because you can't really stop it from happening. And then, it happens later. And I've had lots of precognitive dreams and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But I think what you said is that it's maybe pointing to your unconscious is telling you, you have these gifts, you have this intuition that you're not tapping into, that you have the ability to see the future, but you're not using it on a conscious level. And I'm going to give you a taste of it in their dream life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you this understanding that time is not as it appears to us in the waking state. So when we're awake, time seems to move from past to present to future, right? It's a one-way arrow locked towards the future. But here, how can this be, right? How can it be that months before your mind already knows something that's going to happen? that hasn't happened yet in the world, in the real world, like people say, but in the waking world. It shows something about the nature of space and time, mainly that it's an apparent reality, as it is understood in Eastern philosophy. It is a Maya. It is Maya. It is an apparent reality. It doesn't mean it's not happening. It's happening, but it's happening essentially as a mental experience, as mind stuff.
And so, for her, there's symbolism of twins, which is also duality. There's a death, which is transformation, is also a symbol. Frida Kahlo, it can be a symbol, could be the artist, the free spirit, the intuitive, again, with Frida, like all the things that represent her. She's very creative and colorful. It's like merging your conscious attitude with your unconscious attitude. And there may be aspects of that, whether that person knows it or not, they're bringing out those kind of colorful, creative, intuitive parts of themselves. There's also the husband involved, so that's also something. So we can do lots of layers to this dream, but I think it's really interesting to see that dreams have many layers, that you can interpret it from a big dream standpoint, you can interpret it from a shadow standpoint, you can interpret it from a precognitive standpoint, and there's all these different layers and archetypes in this dream. The mother, the pregnant mother, like there's lots in there. So, of course it takes talent and skill to fully unpack this, but just wanted to give you a glimpse of really how it seems like such a short dream can be packed with so much information. And that's what I love about Jung's work, is that you're not just on a cognitive level trying to think positive and face outward. You're really tapping into the resources that you have within you. And dreams are really a great way to do that. So
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the shadow. When we talk about that part of ourselves that's hidden or pushed away, let's talk about what the shadow is, a review for those who don't know shadow work or what shadow is.
Yeah, and this is more of a discussion, like we were saying before that we got on the podcast. It's more a conversation and talking about our personal experiences in working with people through their shadow and our own experiences, of course.
And so just for clarity's sake, there's a lot of misperceptions about shadow, and I see people calling it limiting beliefs or my negative inner voice, like that gremlin. That's not the shadow. They think, oh, that's my shadow. That's my shadow. No, the shadow is the part that you can't see. It's the part of your mind that you're not conscious of, parts of your personality that you've repressed that you can't see, that actually want to come to express itself through you, both that are too light for your personality. They could be like this intuition or this brilliance, leadership, or it could also be anger or things that aren't socially acceptable or culturally acceptable put in the shadow. And we all know some things that we're hiding from people. We all have a persona. We have this inner kind of conscious self assessing, but these are really things that you're not conscious of. And that's why dreams are so important, because they can really get to the root. And I can tell you, Rob, so many times where I don't know the answer to something and my rational mind can't figure out like what is stopping me. I will have a dream and it's just like, oh, this is what my psyche, my inner wisdom is showing me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the key is to understand that it's both light and dark, not negative and positive so much, because negative and positive are more ego functions. It's our mind's ability to determine if something is good for us or bad for us, and that kind of stuff.
Which creates that persona shadow dynamic.
Yeah. But the shadow is essentially things that were not adaptive for us, things that are not going to help us adapt to our social and physical environment. Those things get pushed into the shadow. And so there's often a lot of abilities, a lot of skills and talents that are repressed or ignored and go into the shadow. And then we forget them. And like you say, we can't see them. So if you know something, that's not shadow, because that's part of your conscious awareness, meaning it's part of your persona. Even if you don't like it, or even if it disturbs you, that is not by definition shadow.
Or something that you can get to by just journaling. Right. You can't really get to the shadow by journaling. You may get like insights of your persona, but the shadow is so unconscious. It's like they're almost like a seal the ego creates that it just bounces off and you think you're getting somewhere, and the ego likes to confuse you and give you some rationale and intellectualize it, and oh yeah, that feels good, but then nothing changes, and you're wondering, oh, I thought I did some shadow work. And so many people that take our training say that, oh, I thought I did years of shadow work, and I realized I haven't done any at all yet because of that misperception in the culture of what it is. So in dreams, I mean, I think it's just the best way to see your shadow, because your ego is kind of asleep and kind of in a more relaxed state where you have access to like raw content.
Yeah, so there's three ways that we can access the unconscious mind, or that we typically use, let's say in Jungian coaching. It's looking at triggers and at emotional triggers, but that involves working with a coach that knows how to get the client to reveal, or get the client's mind to reveal the shadow through that process of coaching. The second one is active imagination, where we're combining both the conscious mind and the unconscious, and asking the unconscious mind to fill in the blanks, in a sense, and give away its content that way. But in dreams, it's the royal road, of course, because our conscious mind is asleep.
So we're kind of unfiltered. I mean, there's a little awareness there, but it's not like in conscious awareness where we're on hyper survival mode. It's kind of like, it's almost relaxed, so that it's like anything else. When you relax and you get into a creative flow, it's like that the mind is more open, and that's kind of like on steroids when you're dreaming.
Yeah, and therefore the content that comes up in dreams is unfiltered. Like you say, it's showing the raw unconscious mind and doing its work there.
Well, wouldn't you say too, we hear a lot of our clients say, oh, I had a nightmare, or I had this very disturbing dream. And so unfiltered, again, it doesn't have the moral codes or the proper, etiquette. And so it's just really like plain, raw, sometimes very graphic. And you're just like, I'm this, and we get clients that would be so sweet and innocent looking and very sweet, and they have these like really raw, like intense kind of dark dreams, and they're just like, where did that come from? And it's really because it's that unfiltered part of our mind. So we don't want to read them as nightmares. We want to see them symbolically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that puts things in the proper perspective. But typically, let's say before people enter the individuation process and get serious about personal transformation, they will often have these shadow dreams that are giving them hints that it's time to do this work, right? It's time to look inward. So the way the unconscious does it, or one of the ways, is that it will present you with a dream of a character that plays out in the drama of a dream that's shady. Right, it's a shadow. Therefore, it tries to make it clear that this character cannot be trusted.
Sometimes I report as like a dark hat, like this, criminal with the dark hat and the dark coat and kind of dark. You can't see their face. This dark figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's of course the trickster, or an aspect of the trickster. And the trickster is an archetype, and it's an archetype of the collective shadow, we can say. But it shows up as these symbols of the trickster in the personal dream. So I'll give you an example. When I was in college, I had a friend who personified my shadow, essentially. He was everything I was not. He was very outspoken. Like he had no hesitation about getting up on stage and playing music and singing and talking to people.
Like a performer.
Yeah, and I was completely the opposite. I was very shy, withdrawn, kept to myself as much as possible, wanted to be left alone, essentially. And so often in my dreams, he would show up and play that role of the shady character who mess things up, right? Or kind of embarrass me in front of other people and those kind of things. That's a kind of a typical beginning of shadow in dreams.
Yeah. That reminds me, a lot of times I'll be working with people and they have a friend that they know on a conscious level, they're their opposite. They're like, this person is my shadow. Like, I am shy, they're outgoing, like kind of the same thing. Like you can kind of see your opposites, but you are drawn together. And that's what really happens. People that carry your shadow qualities are ones you're attracted to because you feel kind of complete with them because they're playing out the script that you on a conscious level resist playing out. And so you get to kind of live through them by being their friend, and they get to live through you by you playing out their shadow. And so I had this one client who would always be like, Becky's in my dream again. I keep having this dream about Becky. And we know what this is. And it was like she kept dreaming it until she got the emotional shift in the shadow work. Like she knew it intellectually. And that's another thing too, is that when you're using dreams, pay attention to the emotion in the dream and what's happening and all those layers besides just kind of trying to put it in a neat little box, because it's kind of complex and individual. So not everyone's shady figure is the same. Not everyone's shadow is the same. And not everyone's persona obviously is the same. And why we created the persona is not the same. And what we're hiding is not the same. So we want to look at it from an individual perspective. And your individuation journey is so unique. So that's why we don't really recommend a dictionary, because the client will know, or the person who's interpreting the dream will know more about what that dream means than anyone else. And the coach can help them, guide them through like kind of the framework, but ultimately the client will be the one with the answer, right?
Yes and no. I mean, let's say it's like you say,
the associations.
The coach can help the client understand and do the integration, which is the next phase of it. But often because people read dreams very literally, they miss the symbolic function of it because they think it's talking about my friend, right? It's not me. My friend was the one messing up in the dream. Therefore,
or my ex-boyfriend keeps showing up. Should I go back with him? I had a dream we got back together, kind of thing like that.
Yeah, and so they ask, is the mind telling me that I should get back with my ex? No, the unconscious mind uses people that we know, characters in our life, to construct the message of the dream.
And so what I was saying is not that the person should be left alone to do their own dream interpretation, but you need someone skilled to understand the kind of the concept, the larger concept and the framework and like why, what to do. But when it comes to a symbol, there are universal symbols, but for everyone, their symbol, there's kind of a personal element to it. They're like, when let's say you dreamt of a Bible, like that could be very different things for very different people. Or you dream of a car, it could mean something different in different cultures and, money and all those things. So it's like a tree and based on your religion, there could be like religious symbols that don't relate to, that relate to you only, that you have a specific kind of emotion towards. So it's a kind of a collaborative experience with the coaching. It's not do it on your own, but you want to give the client that openness to not just say, oh, I have a dream dictionary here. This is what the dream means. And the client's like, okay. You want to give them the opportunity to kind of dig in a little more and explore it. Because don't you think that when the client discovers that connection, it kind of makes sense to the coach, like, oh yeah, that fits into the individuation process, that they feel more empowered than if someone just tells them what it means?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also part of their personal growth so that it has meaning for that individual that might not make sense to anybody else except that individual.
So then after they have this shadow dream, we have this dark figure, the coach understands like where that is. What would be the next step? Like, how do we integrate the shadow? Because at first there's just insight. There's like, oh, I could see that I'm not like Becky, she's outgoing, I'm not. And do I need to be more outgoing? Like it's not that simple.
Not that simple, but because the integration requires emotions, meaning in looking at the dream, one of the clues as to the meaning of that dream is in the emotion, is to the feeling tone, like Jung says. What is the feeling tone of the dream? How does it feel? Or how did it feel when you were in the dream experiencing that process? So if it's embarrassment, if it's shame, if it's anger, if it's amusement, laughter, joy, whatever it is, it's giving us a big clue as to what the unconscious mind is trying to communicate to to us or to our client.
So the symbols are kind of showing us, like kind of reflecting our conscious attitude. And then the feeling, would you say it's something that you're not expressing in waking life? So let's say in the dream, you're laughing and having a great time. And on a conscious level, you're really, feeling down. It's like the dream, it would be a compensatory dream. Like you need to bring more in this life. A lot of our clients have the anger show up in the dream where they're really angry and you're just like, that's not me. Like it was, but it's like you need to get in touch with that feeling.
Yeah.
Would that be a way to look at it?
Yeah, that's an important clue. And again, because we're looking at a human being human beings are very complex, you want to consider all the factors. So you want to look at what kind of dream or what type of dream is this? More importantly, the individual, at what stage are they in their personal development?
Yeah.
Have they done any internal inner work, or are they completely identified with the ego?
This isn't like a one session deal where you're integrated and you're done and it's like a switch that you turn on. It's a progression and evolution of who you are.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is, with all this work, is you're really thinking of your conditioned personality, that part of you that was conditioned early in life. And then there's this other part that wants to live through you, the repressed parts, and not only from your shadow, but from the collective unconscious. And it's about making those parts conscious and having a bigger perspective of yourself in life. So you have more choices, because if you're in that conditioned personality, you only have one option, right? In certain situations, survive. And you cannot have any flexibility in how you respond to life and how you choose your life and taking risks and all those things, where when you have more access to all of who you are, you can have different experiences in life that you probably didn't experience early on, because your shadow the ego wouldn't let the shadow come out. So like, for example, for you, like being able to stand on stage and be bold and be out there is something you've integrated.
Oh, yeah. I'd say I'm in the process of integrating.
It's always a process. Right?
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, this is a natural process, and this is an important piece, because most of us have forgotten this principle, that there is an internal teacher in us that is always guiding us, and we always have access to it, but we ignore it. And it comes, that teacher speaks to us primarily through dreams.
Yeah, and if we don't pay attention to our dreams, we're letting our ego, rational, logical, conscious mind make rational choices in life, which keeps us in the same pattern. So yeah, it's about really becoming self-aware. The self-awareness, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is like you have those, survival needs, social needs, and then there's transcendent needs. And this is individuation lets you have those transcendent experiences. And I think for me, it's like, how everyone takes everything personally. We all do, right? It's like part of being human, as things happen and we take it personally, we're all hard on ourselves. Imagine knowing that that's not all who we are. We're not our results. We're not our behaviors. We're not how people judge us. We're like this grand, amazing being. And don't we want to know that part of ourselves? Like you said, the inner teacher.
Absolutely. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Given your experiences in working with clients, students, friends, family members, right? You also coached family members. What is the common denominator that you've seen in shadow work, as far as the dreams, perhaps, or the symbols that line up with shadow for people, including the emotions?
Well, we started out for the first 10 years doing work with the relationships. And so one of the common dreams I saw with our single clients was the house. They were in their house and someone was trying to get in. And they were kind of fighting, trying to get in. Also, even in the beginning of the process, one of our clients had a dream like the SWAT team was coming in and trying to infiltrate the house. And that's really this other part of ourselves trying to integrate. And the person in the house is like, wait a minute, I set everything up nice.
Barricaded themselves in the house.
Yeah. And so it's showing the ego's resistance, like we're showing like a little bit resistance. But then I always say to my single clients that imagine that you have a house and you have a guard dog. And the guard dog is sitting there guarding you. And that's like the ego. It's always defending you, making you survive. But the thing about the guard dog, it doesn't know the difference between the postman, a thief, or the man of your dreams. So everyone's off limits and bites the mailman and bites the thief, but then also pushes away someone who can bring good into your life and love into your life. So think about, if you're not single, what is it part of your life that you're not allowing yourself to experience? And that dream usually says, this is something here. And then usually the feeling is fear. And so what is that fear? Like, what are you really afraid of? And for most people, it's vulnerability. It's exposure. It's someone's going to see who I really am. And we're so comfortable in our persona and being who we've always been. And it just seems so scary to like be someone else or have a different experience of ourselves.
Yeah. The house dream is a common one.
What about for you?
Yeah, so I wanted to mention more the emotional component. Almost everyone I work with has to deal with anger.
Yeah, but that was the other one. Yeah,
it might not be the central component of their shadow, their particular shadow, but it's part of it, right? And because it's such a raw, primal emotion, I think the way we label it is unfortunate, because we only have one word for it, or maybe rage or something like that. But it still kind of denotes that kind of angry feeling, right? Of attack or wanting to hurt or that kind of thing.
Or even like it starts as a frustration and we keep burying it and burying it and burying it, and then it bursts out
explodes,
because it's not okay to express, ourselves. And anger is actually also the same word as passion. It means the same thing. So if it's about passion and being, saying what you mean and being passionate about something, it's also anger at the same time, like this kind of strong energy, right?
That's it, the energy. So one of the differences between Freud and Jung was the idea of libido. So Freud was very much into thinking about libido as sexual energy, and Jung wanted to expand the concept to understand it more as life energy or life force. That libido, that raw energy, that life force, when it's frustrated, when we're not able to express it in a creative way or and in a complete way, it backs up, right? It's that frustration. It's that damming up of that raw power of emotion. And that's really what most people call anger, but it's pure, raw, powerful energy that we can turn into passion and purpose.
Well, and if you think about it, not just anger, like and who we blow up at or we have anger toward is usually not the source of the anger. The source can happen, you have work and you're frustrated with your boss, but it's not appropriate to yell at your boss because you can lose your job. So you come home and you take it out on your partner, or you take it out on your friend, or, you just kind of get triggered. It's that energy needs to go somewhere. Or if you really repress it, it shows up in other people. You get people angry at you and you're just like, why am I around all these angry people? I am so peace and calm. I am a peaceful spiritual person and everyone's so angry. What's wrong with the world? And it's like, we have to integrate. So whatever judgments we have over other people's emotions and personality behaviors is something that we're rejecting in ourselves. And there's always that moral code, right? I think that was one of the big questions that a lot of our students ask at the beginning is like, what's morality? And do we have no moral code? And it's not okay to yell at people. So how do we come to terms with that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the functions of the integration of the shadow, is that it allows then for that raw emotional libido energy to be transformed into consciousness, into conscious awareness, in other words, to be able to use it, in a creative way. So why do we need that passion? It fuels relationships. It fuels our passion for work. It fuels our energy, our mind-body energy, so that we're healthy and feel good.
Look, we're not numb. Like what would be done, especially in our culture, is numb everything. And then we wonder why we're not connecting with people in relationships. Like, I don't feel the passion for that person, or they don't feel the passion for me, or I don't get excited about work anymore. I'm kind of like that dullness. And it's like, it's almost like falling asleep, this dormant energy. And what happens, I know for me, when I left the corporate world and I started at first starting as a hypnotherapist, it was all this energy that I've been like just pushing away and denying myself of. And you remember when you met me, I was so excited and passionate. And that was like a year and a half after I started. And it was just like so exciting to take that energy and move it towards something creative versus using it to beat myself up, using it to be resentful in life, resentful of, situations. It's like turning that energy around and using it for creativity. And then in dreams, it really shows you that raw energy and how you are using it in a way, right?
That's right. And so part of the process of integration of the shadow, it's not this, it's heavy or difficult from the perspective of our ego, right? From the persona side, because we're having to restructure our life in a way, our sense of self. But from the opposite side, from the self side, it's an incredible journey because now we start to gain access to that raw energy that is in the shadow, or through the shadow, we access that power. So the integration piece is really important, that we learn that dreams are not just giving us these weird messages about, we're acting too rational or too uptight in this area or that. It's that they're going to point directly to the source of inner power, that passion.
It's like untapped power that we're projecting out onto the world. And we think the world has power and we don't. And that's really the in the beginning part of our life shaped by the world. That's what we're taught. The parents have the power, society has the power, teachers have the power, the economy has the power, governments have the power. And then we feel this kind of like we're just bobbing on the top of the ocean, being tossed around by the waves. And we are the ocean. And that's really what this shows, is this blending of not only our intuitive powers but also like a universal power, that we're so much more than we think we are. And that's what I love about dreams. So next week, we're going to go deeper and we're going to talk about the anima and animus in dreams.
Oh yeah, we're going to trigger some people.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The feminine and masculine, not in the gender roles, but more like the energies and how they play out in dreams. Very, very interesting. So don't forget to subscribe here. Click the button in the corner here if you're watching us on YouTube, because the next episode, we're going to go a little deeper. You don't want to miss it.
And we'll be sure to present some new dreams as well.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Soul Sessions.
See you soon.